Tyrion. "You won't eat?" Maud asked, glowering. He had a plate of boiled beans in one thick, stub-fingered hand. Tyrion Lannister was starved, but he refused to let this brute see him cringe. "A leg of lamb would be pleasant," he said from the heap of soiled straw in the corner of his cell. "Perhaps a dish of peas and onions, some fresh-baked bread with butter, and a flagon of mulled wine to wash it down. Or beer, if it's easier. I try not to be too overly particular." "Is beans," Maud said. "Here." He held out the plate. Tyrion sighed. The turnkey was 20 stone of gross stupidity, with brown rotting teeth and small dark eyes. The left side of his face was slick with scar where an axe had cut off his ear and part of his cheek. He was as predictable as he was ugly, but Tyrion was hungry. He reached up for the plate. Maud jerked it away, grinning. "Is here," he said, holding it out beyond Tyrion's reach. The dwarf climbed swiftly to his feet, every joint aching. "Must we play the same fool's game with every meal?" He made another grab for the beans. Maud shambled backwards, grinning through his rotten teeth. "Is here, dwarf man." He held the plate out at arm's length over the edge where the cell ended and the sky began. "You want eat? Here, come take." Tyrion's arms were too short to reach the plate, and he was not about to step that close to the edge. All it would take would be a quick shove of Maud's heavy white belly, and he would end up as a sickening red splotch on the stones of Skye, like so many other prisoners of the Eyrie over the centuries. "Come to think of it, I'm not hungry after all," he declared, retreating to the corner of his cell. Maud grunted and opened his thick fingers. The wind took the plate, flipping it over as it fell. A handful of beans sprayed back at them as the food tumbled out of sight. The turnkey laughed, his gut shaking like a bowl of pudding. Tyrion felt a pang of rage. "You fucking son of a pox-ridden ass," he spat. "I hope you die of a bloody flux." For that, Maud gave him a kick, driving a steel-toed boot hard into Tyrion's ribs on the way out. "I take it back," he gasped as he doubled over on the straw. "I'll kill you myself, I swear it." The heavy iron-bound door slammed shut. Tyrion heard the rattle of keys. For a small man, he'd been cursed with a dangerously big mouth, he reflected, as he crawled back to his corner of which the Aarons laughably called their dungeons. He huddled beneath the thin blanket that was his only bedding, staring out at a blaze of empty blue sky and the distant mountains that seemed to go on forever, wishing he still had the shadow skin cloak he'd won from Marillion at dice after the singer had stolen it off the body of that brigand chief. The skin had smelled of blood and mould, but it was warm and thick. Maud had taken it the moment he'd laid eyes on it. The wind tugged at his blanket with gusts as sharp as talons. His cell was miserably small, even for a dwarf. Not 5 feet away there was where a wall would have been in a proper dungeon. The floor ended and the sky began. He had plenty of fresh air and sunshine, and the moon and stars by night, but Tyrion would have traded it all in an instant for the dankest, gloomiest pit in the bowels of Casterly Rock. "You fly," Maud had promised him when he shoved Tyrion into the cell. 20 day, 30, 50 maybe. Then you fly." The Aarons kept the only dungeon in the realm where the prisoners were welcome to escape at will. That first day, after girding up his courage for hours, Tyrion had lain flat on his stomach and squirmed to the edge to poke out his head and look down. Sky was 600 feet below, with nothing between but empty air. If he craned his neck as far out as it would go, he could see the other cells to his right and left above him. He was a bee in a stone honeycomb, and someone had torn off his wings. It was cold in the cell, the wind screamed at night and day, and worst of all, the floor sloped, ever so slightly, yet it was enough. He was afraid to close his eyes, afraid that he might roll over in his sleep and wake in sudden terror as he went sliding off the edge. Small wonder the sky cells drove men mad. "God save me," some previous tenant had written on the wall in something that looked suspiciously like blood. "The blue is calling." At first Tyrion wondered who he'd been and what had become of him. Later he decided he'd rather not know. If only he'd shut his mouth. The wretched boy had started it, looking down on him from a throne of carved weirwood beneath the moon and falcon banners of Lord Arryn. Tyrion Lannister had been looked down on all his life, but seldom by rheumy-eyed 6-year-olds who needed to stuff fat cushions under their cheeks to lift them to be the height of a man. "Is he a bad man?" the boy had asked, clutching his doll. "He is," the Lady Lysa had said from the lesser throne beside him. She was all in blue, powdered and perfumed, for the suitors have filled her court. "He's so small," the Lord of the Eyrie said, giggling. "This is Tyrion the Imp of House Lannister, who murdered your father." She raised her voice so it carried down the length of the high hall of the Eyrie, ringing off the milk-white walls and slender pillars so every man could hear it. "He slew the Hand of the King." "Oh, did I kill him too?" Tyrion had said like a fool. That would have been a very good time to have kept his mouth closed and his head bowed. He could see it now. 7 hells, he'd seen it then. The high hall of the Arryns was long and austere, with a forbidding coldness to its walls and blue-veined white marble, but the laces around him had been colder by far. The power of Casterly Rock was far away, and there were no friends of the Lannisters in the Vale of Arryn. Submission and silence would have been his best friend. But Tyrion's mood had been too foul for sense. To his shame, he had faltered during the last leg of their day-long climb up to the Eyrie, his stunted legs unable to carry him any farther. Bronn had carried him the rest of the way, and the humiliation poured oil on the flames of his anger. "It would seem I've been a busy fellow," he said with bitter sarcasm. "I wonder when I've found time to do all this slaying and murdering." He ought to have remembered who he was dealing with. Lysa Arryn and her half-sane weakling son had not been known at court for their love of wit, especially when it was directed at them. "Imp," Lysa said coldly, "you will guard that mocking tone of yours and speak to my son politely, or I promise you will have cause to regret it. Remember where you are. This is the Eyrie, and the knights of the Vale you see around you, true men who love Jon Arryn well. Every one of them would die for me." "Lady Arryn, should any harm come to me, my brother Jaime will be pleased to see that they do." Even as he spat out the words, Tyrion knew they were folly. "Can you fly, my Lord of Lannister?" Lady Lysa asked. "Does a dwarf have wings? If not, you would be wiser to swallow the next threat that comes to mind." "I made no threats," Tyrion said. "That was a promise." Little Lord Robert hopped to his feet at that, so upset he dropped his doll. "You can't hurt us!" he screamed. "No one can hurt us here. Tell him, Mother. Tell him he can't hurt us here." The boy began to twitch. "The Eyrie is impregnable," Lysa Arryn declared calmly. She drew her son close, holding him safe in the circle of her plump white arms. "The imp is trying to frighten us, sweet baby. The Lannisters are all liars. No one will hurt my sweet boy." The hell of it was, she was no doubt right. Having seen what it took to get here, Tyrion could well imagine how difficult it would be for a knight trying to fight his way up in armour, while stones and arrows poured down from above, and enemies contested him with every step. Nightmare didn't begin to describe it. Small wonder the Eyrie had never been taken. Still, Tyrion had been unable to silence himself. "Not impregnable," he said. "Merely inconvenient." Young Robert pointed down, his hand trembling. "You're a liar! Mother, I want to see him fly." 2 guardsmen in sky-blue cloaks seized Tyrion by the arms, lifting him off the floor. The gods only knew what might have happened then, were it not for Catelyn Stark. "Sister," she called out from where she stood below the thrones, "I beg you to remember this man is my prisoner. I will not have him harmed." Lysa Arryn glanced at her sister coolly for a moment, then rose and swept down on Tyrion, her long skirts trailing after her. For an instant he feared she would strike him, but instead she commanded them to release him. Her men shoved him to the floor, his legs went out from under him, and Tyrion fell. He must have made quite a sight as he struggled to his knees, only to feel his right leg spasm, sending him sprawling once more. Laughter loomed up and down the hall of the Arryns. "My sister's little guest is too weary to stand," Lady Lysa announced. "Sir Vardis, take him down to the dungeon. A rest in one of our sky cells will do him much good." The guardsman jerked him upright. Tyrion Lannister dangled between them, kicking feebly, his face red with shame. "I will remember this," he told them all as he was carried off. And so he did, for all the good it did him. At first he consoled himself that this imprisonment would not last long. Lysa Arryn wanted to humble him, that was all. She would send for him again, and soon. If not, then Catelyn Stark would want to question him. This time he would guard his tongue more closely. They dare not kill him out of hand. He was still a Lannister of Casterly Rock, and if they shed his blood, it would mean war. Or so he told himself. Now he wasn't so certain. Perhaps his captors only meant to let him rot here, but he feared he did not have the strength to rot long. He was growing weaker every day, and it was only a matter of time until Maud's kicks and blows did him serious harm, provided the gaoler did not starve him to death first. A few more nights of cold and hunger, and the blue would start calling to him, too. He wondered what was happening beyond the walls, such as they were, of his cell. Lord Tywin would certainly have sent out riders when the word reached him. Jaime might be leading a host through the mountains of the moon even now, unless he was riding north against Winterfell instead. Did anyone outside the Vale even suspect where Catelyn Stark had taken him? He wondered what Cersei would do when she heard. The king would order him freed, but would Robert listen to his queen or his hand? Tyrion had no illusions about the king's love for his sister. If Cersei kept her wits about her, she would insist that the king sit in judgment of Tyrion himself. Even Ned Stark could scarcely subject to that, not without impugning the honour of his king. And Tyrion would be only too glad to take his chances in a trial. Whatever murders they might lay at his door, the Starks had no proof of anything so far as he could see. Let them make their case before the Iron Throne and the Lords of the Land. It would be the end of them. If only Cersei were clever enough to see that. Tyrion Lannister laughed. His sister was not without a certain low cunning, but her pride blinded her. She would see the insult in this, not the opportunity. And Jaime was even worse, rash and headstrong and quick to anger. His brother never untied a knot when he could slash it in two with his sword. He wondered which of them had sent the footpad to the Stark boy, and whether they had truly conspired at the death of Lord Arryn. If the old hand had been murdered, it was deftly and subtly done. Men of his age died of sudden illnesses all the time. In contrast, sending some oaf with a stolen knife after Brandon Stark struck him as unbelievably clumsy. And wasn't that peculiar, come to think of it? Tyrion shivered. Now there was a nasty suspicion. Perhaps the direwolf and the lion were not the only beasts in the woods, and if that was true, someone was using him as a cat's paw. Tyrion Lannister hated being used. He would have to get out of here, and soon. His chances of overpowering Maud were small to none, and no one was about to smuggle him a 600-foot-long rope, so he would have to talk himself free. His mouth had gotten him into this cell. It could damn well get him out. Tyrion pushed himself to his feet, doing his best to ignore the slope of the floor beneath him, and its ever-so-subtle tug toward the edge. He hammered on the door with a fist. "Maud!" he shouted. "Turnkey! Maud! I want you!" He had to keep it up a good 10 minutes before he heard footsteps. Tyrion stepped back an instant before the door opened with a crash. "Making noise," Maud growled, with blood in his eyes. Dangling from one meaty hand was a leather strap, wide and thick, doubled over in his fist. "Never show them you're afraid," Tyrion reminded himself. "How would you like to be rich?" he asked. Maud hit him. He swung the strap backhand lazily, but the leather caught Tyrion high in the arm. The force of it staggered him, and the pain made him grit his teeth. "No mouth, dwarf man," Maud warned him. "Gold," Tyrion said, miming a smile. "Casterly Rock is full of gold. Ah!" This time the blow was a forehand, and Maud put more of his arm into the swing, making the leather crack and jump. It caught Tyrion in his ribs and dropped him to his knees, whimpering. He forced himself to look up at the gaoler. "As rich as the Lannisters," he wheezed. "That's what they say, Maud." Maud grunted. The strap whistled through the air and smashed Tyrion full on in the face. The pain was so bad he didn't remember falling, but when he opened his eyes again, he was on the floor of his cell. His ear was ringing and his mouth was full of blood. He groped for purchase to push himself up, and his fingers brushed against nothing. Tyrion snatched his hand back as fast as it had been scalded, and tried his best to stop breathing. He'd fallen right to the edge, inches from the blue. "More to say?" Maud held the strap between his fists and gave it a sharp pull. The snap made Tyrion jump. The turnkey laughed. "He won't push me over," Tyrion told himself desperately as he crawled away from the edge. "Catelyn Stark wants me alive. He doesn't dare kill me." He wiped the blood off his lips with the back of his hand, grinned and said, "That was a stiff one, Maud." The gaoler squinted at him, trying to decide if he was being mocked. "I could make good use of a strong man like you." The strap flew at him, but this time Tyrion was able to cringe away from it. He took a glancing blow to the shoulder, nothing more. "Gold," he repeated, scrambling backward like a crab. "More gold than you see here in a lifetime. Enough to buy land, women, horses. You could be a lord. Lord Maud." Tyrion hawked up a glob of blood and phlegm and spat it out into the sky. "Is no gold," Maud said. "He's listening," Tyrion thought. "They relieved me of my purse when they captured me, but the gold is still mine. Catelyn Stark might take a man prisoner, but she'd never stoop to rob him. That wouldn't be honourable. Help me, and all the gold is yours." Maud's strap licked out, but it was half-hearted, a desultory swing, slow and contemptuous. Tyrion caught the leather in his hand and held it poised. "There will be no risk to you. All you need to do is deliver a message." The gaoler yanked his leather strap free of Tyrion's grip. "Message," he said, as if he'd never heard the word before. His frowns made deep creases in his brow. "You heard me, my lord. Only carry my word to your lady. Tell her—" What? What would possibly make Lysa Arryn relent? The inspiration came to Tyrion Lannister suddenly. "Tell her I wish to confess my crimes." Maud raised his arm and Tyrion braced himself for another blow, but the turnkey hesitated. Suspicion and greed warred in his eyes. He wanted the gold, yet he feared a trick. He had the look of a man who'd often been tricked. "Is lie," he muttered darkly. "Dwarf man cheat me." "I will put my promise in writing," Tyrion vowed. Some illiterates held writing in disdain. Others seemed to have superstitious reverence for the written word, as if it were some sort of magic. Fortunately, Maud was one of the latter. The turnkey lowered the strap. "Writing down gold. Much gold." "Oh, much gold," Tyrion assured him. "The purse is just a taste, my friend. My brother wears armor of solid gold plate." In truth, Jaime's armor was gilded steel, but this oaf would never know the difference. Maud fingered the strap thoughtfully, but in the end he relented and went to fetch paper and ink. When the letter was written, the gaoler frowned at it suspiciously. "Now, deliver my message," Tyrion urged. He was shivering in his sleep when they came for him late that night. Maud opened the door, but kept his silence. Sir Vardis Egan woke Tyrion with the point of his boot. "On your feet, imp. My lady wants to see you." Tyrion rubbed the sleep from his eyes and put on a grimace he scarcely felt. "No doubt she does, but what makes you think I wish to see her?" Sir Vardis frowned. Tyrion remembered him well from the years he'd spent at King's Landing as the captain of the Hand's household guard. A square, plain face, silver hair, a heavy build, and no humour whatsoever. "Your wishes are not my concern. On your feet, or I'll have you carried." Tyrion clambered awkwardly to his feet. "A cold night," he said casually, "and the high hall is so draughty. I do not wish to catch a chill. Maud, if you would be so good, fetch my cloak." The gaoler squinted at him, face dull with suspicion. "My cloak," Tyrion repeated. "The shadow skin you took from me for safekeeping, you recall." "Get him the damnable cloak," Sir Vardis said. Maud did not grumble. He gave Tyrion a glare that promised future retribution, yet he went for the cloak. When he draped it round the prisoner's neck, Tyrion smiled. "My thanks. I shall think of you whenever I wear it." He flung the trailing end of the long fur over his right shoulder and felt warm for the first time in days. "Lead on, Sir Vardis." The high hall of the Aarons was aglow with the light of 50 torches burning in the sconces on the walls. The Lady Lysa wore black silk with the moon and falcon sewn in her breast in pearls. Since she did not look the sort to join the night's watch, Tyrion could scarcely imagine she had decided on mourning clothes, that they were appropriate garb for a confession. Her long auburn hair, woven into an elaborate braid, fell across her left shoulder. The taller throne beside her was empty. No doubt the little lord of the Eyrie was off shaking in his sleep. Tyrion was thankful for that much, at least. He bowed deeply and took a moment to glance round the hall. Lady Arryn had summoned her knights and retainers to hear his confession, as he had hoped. He saw Sir Brynden Tully's craggy face and Lord Nestor Royce's bluff one. Beside Nestor stood a younger man, with fierce black side whiskers, who could only be his heir, Sir Alba. Most of the principal houses of the Vale were represented. Tyrion noted Sir Lyn Corbray, slender as a sword, Lord Hunter with his gouty legs, the widowed Lady Waynwood surrounded by her sons. Others supported sigils he did not know: broken lance, green viper, burning tower, winged chalice. Among the lords of the Vale were several of his companions from the high road. Sir Roderick Castle, pale from half-healed wounds, stood there with Sir Willis Woade beside him. Marillion the singer had found a new wood-harp. Tyrion smiled. Whatever happened here tonight, he did not wish it happen in secret, and there was no one like a singer for spreading a story near and far. In the rear of the hall, Bronn lounged beneath a pillar. The free rider's black eyes were fixed on Tyrion, and his hand lay lightly on the pommel of his sword. Tyrion gave him a long look, wondering. Catelyn Stark spoke first. "You wish to confess your crimes, we are told." "I do, my lady," Tyrion answered. Lysa Arryn smiled at her sister. "The sky cells always break them. The gods can see them there, and there is no darkness to hide in." "He does not look broken to me," Lady Catelyn said. Lady Lysa paid her no mind. "Say what you will," she commanded Tyrion. And now to roll the dice, he thought, with another quick glance back at Bronn. "Where to begin? I'm a vile little man, I confess it. My crimes and sins are beyond counting, my lords and ladies. I have lain with whores, not once, but hundreds of times. I have wished my own lord father dead, and my sister, our gracious queen, as well." Behind him someone chuckled. "I have not always treated my servants with kindness. I have gambled, I have even cheated, I blush to admit. I have said many cruel and malicious things about the noble lords and ladies of the court." That drew outright laughter. "Once I—" "Silence!" Lysa Arryn's pale round face had turned a burning pink. "What do you imagine you are doing, dwarf?" Tyrion cocked his head to one side. "Why, confessing my crimes, my lady." Catelyn Stark took a step forward. "You are accused of sending a hired knife to slay my son Bran in his bed, and of conspiring to murder Lord Jon Arryn, the Hand of the King." Tyrion gave a helpless shrug. "Those crimes I cannot confess, I fear. I know nothing of any murders." Lysa Arryn rose from her weirwood throne. "I will not be made mock of. You've had your little jape, imp. I trust you enjoyed it. Sir Vardis, take him back to the dungeon, but this time find him a smaller cell, with a floor more sharply sloped." "Is this how justice is done in the Vale?" Tyrion roared, so loudly that Sir Vardis froze for an instant. "Does honour stop at the bloody gate? You accuse me of crimes. I deny them, so you throw me into an open cell to freeze and starve." He lifted his head to give them all a good look at the bruises Maud had left on his face. "Where is the king's justice? Is the Eyrie not part of the 7 kingdoms? I stand accused, you say. Very well, I demand a trial. Let me speak, and let my truth or falsehood be judged openly in the sight of gods and men." A low murmuring filled the high hall. He had her, Tyrion knew. He was highborn, the son of the most powerful lord in the realm, the brother of the queen. He could not be denied a trial. Guardsmen in sky-blue cloaks had started toward Tyrion, but Sir Vardis bid them halt and looked to Lady Lysa. Her small mouth twitched in a petulant smile. "If you are tried and found guilty of the crimes for which you stand accused, then by the king's own laws you must pay with your life's blood. We keep no headsman in the Eyrie, my lord of Lannister. Open the moon door." The press of spectators parted. A narrow weirwood door stood between 2 slender marble pillars, a crescent moon carved in the white wood. Those standing closest edged backward as a pair of guardsmen marched through. One man removed the heavy bronze bars, the second pulled the door inward. Their blue cloaks rose, snapping from their shoulders, caught in the sudden gust of wind that came howling through the open door. Beyond was the emptiness of the night sky, speckled with uncertain stars. "Behold the king's justice," Liza Aaron said. Torch flames fluttered like pennons against the walls, and here and there the odd torch guttered out. "Liza, I think this unwise," Catelyn Stark said as the black wind swirled round the hall. Her sister ignored her. "You want a trial, my lord of Lannister? Very well, a trial you shall have. My son will listen to whatever you have to say, and you shall hear his judgment. Then you may leave. By one door or the other." She looked so pleased with herself, Tyrion thought, and small wonder. How could a trial threaten her when her weakling son was the Lord Judge? Tyrion glanced at her moon door. "Mother, I want to see him fly," the boy had said. How many men had the snot-nosed little wretch sent through the door already? "I thank you, my good lady, but I see no need to trouble Lord Robert," Tyrion said politely. "The gods know the truth of my innocence. I shall have their verdict, not the judgment of men. I demand trial by combat." A storm of sudden laughter filled the high hall of the Aarons. Lord Nestor Royce snorted, Sir Willis chuckled, Sir Lyn Corbray guffawed, and others threw back their heads and howled until tears ran down their faces. Marillion clumsily plucked a gay note on his new wood harp with the fingers of his broken hand. Even the wind seemed to whistle with derision as it came skirling through the moon door. Liza Aaron's watery blue eyes looked uncertain. He'd caught her off balance. "You have that right, to be sure." The young knight with the green viper embroidered on his surcoat stepped forward and bent to one knee. "My lady, I beg the boon of championing your cause." "The honour should be mine," old Lord Hunter said. "For the love I bear your lord husband, let me avenge his death." "My father served Lord John faithfully as High Steward of the Vale," Sir Albar Royce boomed. "Let me serve his son in this." "The gods favour the man with the just cause," said Sir Lyn Corbray. "Yet often that turns out to be the man with the surest sword. We all know who that is." He smiled modestly. A dozen other men all spoke at once, clamouring to be heard. Tyrion found it disheartening to realize so many strangers were eager to kill him. Perhaps this had not been such a clever plan at all. Liza Aaron raised a hand for silence. "I thank you, my lords, as I know my son would thank you if he was among us. No men in the 7 kingdoms are as bold and true as the Knights of the Vale. Would that I would grant all you this honour, yet I can choose only one." She gestured. "Sir Vardis Egan, you were ever my lord's good right hand. You shall be our champion." Sir Vardis had been singularly silent. "My lady," he said gravely, sinking to one knee, "pray give this burden to another. I have no taste for it. This man is no warrior. Look at him, a dwarf half my size and lame in his legs. It would be shameful to slaughter such a man and call it justice." "Oh, excellent," Tyrion thought. "I agree." Liza glared at him. "You demanded a trial by combat." "And now I demand a champion, such as you have chosen for yourself. My brother Jaime will gladly take part, I know." "Your precious Kingslayer is hundreds of leagues from here," snapped Liza Aaron. "Send a bird for him. I shall gladly await his arrival." "You shall face Sir Vardis on the morrow." "Singer," Tyrion said, turning to Marillion, "when you make a ballad of this, be certain to tell them how Lady Aaron denied the dwarf the right to a champion and sent him forth lame and bruised and hobbling to face her finest knight." "I deny you nothing," Liza Aaron said, her voice peeved and shrill with irritation. "Name your champion, imp, if you think you can find a man to die for you." "If it is all the same to you, I'd sooner find one to kill for me." Tyrion looked over the long hall. No one moved. For a long moment he wondered if it had all been a colossal blunder. Then there was a stirring in the rear of the chamber. "I'll stand for the dwarf," Bronn called out.
So the cells of the Eyrie sound awful.
"Oh my god, I know, right? They sound horrifying."
You're free to escape. It's only 600 feet down.
Yeah. Just a nice flight
Mm-hmm.
down to Sky.
Now we see what Robert meant by he wants to see him fly.
Yep, now we know what that means. Sweet Robin.
Mm.
Sweet Robin. Such a nice boy. Wants to see people.
That's why you thought his name was Robin. She
Yep.
calls him Robin.
Yep, that's why I kept going there. You know. Because she calls him that. Because that's not confusing at all to anyone reading the books for the first time either, right? No.
Well, no, because they don't know that she calls him Robin, so it's not.
I thought she called him that in the first chapter that we meet her. I thought she called him that.
No.
Oh.
Because that's when we had the discussion. I think it was off camera, but you said I thought his name was Robin, not Robert.
Oh. Maybe. Yeah, we did have that conversation, didn't we? And you were like, "No, you fool, let me school you about Song of Ice and Fire."
Yes. Robin is his pet name.
Robert is his real name.
Exactly.
That turnkey, that jailer guy, dear God.
I know.
Dear God, Tyrion really had to work hard to make himself understood.
I know.
Oh, my lord.
The belt coming out.
I know. At least it wasn't jumper cables, right?
Oh, yeah. Glad they didn't discover electricity yet. Imagine back then, it wouldn't even be like hooked up to a battery, it'd just be a bunch of lemons and potatoes. Like 100 lemons and potatoes hooked up.
A whole field of just potatoes all hooked up.
Come out to my potato patch, and we will discuss this.
Like men. That being said, though, Tyrion did very much use the situation to his advantage and called Liza Arryn out. Like, what? Are you saying that this is how King's justice is done in the Vale? You're really gonna just kill me? A Lannister? My dad probably won't like that. Maybe you should think about what you're doing. Like, she's not being very smart in this situation.
No.
She's not using her brain.
That's truly saying something when Catelyn Stark is thinking more rationally than you.
Yeah, like...
At the same time, if I was Liza, I'd probably be pretty peeved too at Catelyn. Like, okay, you brought him here. You started this.
Right.
Now you're telling me how to handle it.
Yeah, pretty much. She didn't want him there. She didn't want Cat there. She didn't want any part of anything. She just wants to sit in the Eyrie and mind her own business. And honestly, it sounds like just hide from everything.
Yeah.
And be left alone. And here comes Cat with a Lannister. Just exactly the family that she's terrified of, and she brings it right to her doorstep. Like, no, I don't blame her for being frightened, but at the same time, you got to use your brain. This has now become a political situation. You can't just kill him.
I think this goes to show that Liza is not a very good political figure.
No. She doesn't play the Game of Thrones very well.
She plays the Game of Thrones as well as she parents.
Yeah. Ew.
Mm-hmm.
Gross. Ew.
Let me just hide and avoid.
Yeah. I just want to stay away from everything. She'd have been great for the pandemic. She would have done very well in the pandemic.
Right? She would have been a leading figure.
Yeah. She would have been great. Staying at home, not letting anyone leave, keeping all the Knights of the Vale all bunched up together.
I mean, in a way, I don't blame her either. If I was living in Westeros, I would want to be leader of the Eyrie and just be like, look, I just want to keep to myself.
Right.
Chill with my people. You guys do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Leave me out of it.
The Eyrie sounds like a pretty great place.
Mhm.
I mean, even Tyrion admits it. He's like, yeah, if they did want to invade, it's never been taken before. That would not be too easy. Because it's so impenetrable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whoever the first Lord of the Eyrie was, the first Aaron to build the castle, they used their brain. They're like, I'm going to build it on the edge of a mountain, way up high. No one is going to be able to get up here. That was...
Surprised they found anyone to build it, though.
Yeah, how many workmen died building the sky cells? building
How many
gas.
workmen survived and had back issues the rest of their life? Can you imagine trying to carry all that supply up the mountain? You have to build a castle?
Maybe this was built in the days when magic was still in the world. They used magic.
Maybe. Maybe they borrowed some of the Targaryen dragons and they just flew it up.
Maybe the first Aaron was cool with the Targaryens and was like, hey, can we just borrow that one?
I need to finish Fire and Blood because I'm pretty sure they talk about the Eyrie and all that. Maybe they did, and I just don't remember.
I read it so fast that I don't remember. I have to go back through and read it.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and look.
I read it so fast that I
remember the Eyrie.
Well, they mention pretty much all the places.
Mm.
I
feel like they said that one of the Targaryens took the Eyrie because they had the dragons, so they could just fly up and burn out their castle.
I don't think they did. I think they tried, but I don't think they did.
Okay. Well, either way. Eyrie is where I would want to be. And I don't know if I'd want to be Bronn right now.
I know, Bronn sticking his neck out there. Why do you think Bronn stuck his neck out there? Be like, yep, I'll fight for Tyrion.
Well, he's a sellsword, and Tyrion's one of the richest men in Westeros.
I know. He's thinking money.
Mm-hmm.
Yo, if I save you, I will make a lot of money.
And if I don't, I'll be dead. So it won't matter.
Yep. I mean, that's pretty much his life. I'll either make a lot of money, or I die.
And then I don't need money.
Yeah.
So.
That's a pretty simple way to live life.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And Tyrion thought Jaime was gonna come help him.
I know. He's just like, I'll wait for Jaime to come.
I mean...
Yeah, how long are you gonna wait?
I mean, if I was Lysa, I would have been like, okay. Then you have Jaime and Tyrion, and just throw them both in cells.
Right? Oh, that wouldn't start a war or anything.
Yeah, but no one's taking the Eyrie.
That's true. That's true. Come and get him.
Mm-hmm.
Come and get him, guys.
And also, you have both of his sons, so you have some serious negotiating power.
Mm-hmm.
Both of his heirs.
Tywin might get nervous.
So would Tywin even attack?
Yeah, that's true.
I see even one Lannister cross the bloody gate. They go out the moon door.
That's true. Out the moon door. I'll make him fly, Tywin. I'll do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. What? I mean, he's the ultimate strategist. He might be able to figure something out, but I don't know.
Probably, but at that point, all the cards are in your hand, and he's the one who has to
come up with an alternative. Absolutely. Yeah, he's the one that's got to be like, well, how about we do this instead?
Then you just say you don't want to talk to Tywin. Send Cersei. She's more reasonable. And then you have all of his children.
Send Cersei. She's more reasonable. Yeah, she's the epitome of logic and reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
I do love when Tyrion's like, I'm gonna confess my crimes. Once when I was 7, I did this. And I've also whored too much, and I drink too much. And then this happened. And oh, the things you're accusing me of? Oh, no, I didn't do that. That was not me.
Oh, no. I'm here to confess to my crimes, not any of that.
I'm confessing the things I did do. Nothing
And
that I didn't.
Tyrion's not even sure if it was Jaime or Cersei.
Yeah, his inner monologue definitely casts doubts for the reader, because Tyrion is the one that brings up, like, why would Cersei and Jaime use that weapon, be that obvious, hire that kind of guy to do that? Like,
I think he's starting to suspect Cersei, framing him.
right?
Or was it even any of them?
Right. Was it even a Lannister? Was a Lannister even involved? Maybe it had nothing to do with them.
Or was Peter Baelish lying and the knife was his all along?
Oh.
Peter Baelish said it.
Oh, and what would his motivation be to do that?
Maybe if he killed all the Stark kids in Eddard, then Catelyn would love him?
I mean, maybe.
Maybe the Lannisters pay him a lot of money, and he can't afford for any bad shame to come on the family, so he's afraid his bank is gonna close.
That's true. I mean, how much money do they owe Tywin Lannister?
43 million?
The realm owes Tywin,
like 43 million or something like that.
Gold dragons. Yeah, that's a lot of money, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of money.
Like, I'm interested to know how much a gold coin is worth in today's market. Because, a gold dragon, I would just gold coin.
Like a gold piece?
Yeah. That's how I picture it. Just maybe with a dragon on it.
Right, because they're gold dragons and what, silver stags?
Mm-hmm.
I think it would depend on how much gold.
And then just
is in the
copper. Well, I know, but I'm sure there's a certain amount that's used in gold coins, It's gotta have a certain value.
Oh, it's just giving me USA gold coins.
Look up the size of a gold coin.
There are different kinds of sizes depending on the place they were minted.
Well, yeah, but let's see if there's an average.
International standard coin sizes.
$5.
This is US quarters. $5 gold piece. Canadian.
Well, let's just say a gold coin was worth $5 in gold. So that's probably what it is.
Although I was seeing that the American Gold Eagle coins are worth like $1,800.
Well, I think they're collectible. But either way,
Well,
in today's market,
they weigh like an ounce.
In today's market, you'd probably have to be Jeff Bezos, and even then.
For what?
To pay off the debt.
Oh, to pay off Tywin Lannister? Yeah, probably. And even then, yeah, maybe not quite. Yeah, they owe him 43 million gold dragons, and he is still the wealthiest dude in Westeros.
Mm-hmm.
Where did the man get all that? What has he been doing that he made all that?
They tell you Casterly Rock is built on a gold mine. Literally.
You ruined my facetiousness.
Sorry.
Okay.
But they said.
I know they said. I was being colorful.
They literally create the money.
Oh.
But anyway.
Can we insinuate then he's creating inflation by just making more money? He's going to cause an inflation crisis in Westeros if he just keeps mining more of it. Just kidding.
I was gonna say.
I'm kidding! Oh my god, is it too early in the morning for you for my jokes that are bad?
I think so.
Goodness.
I was gonna say, well, you can't create inflation with gold because it's a finite resource, and therefore there's a limited amount of it.
Wow. We're back to the Harry Potter thing again, where I say something, and you have to just be like, no, actually, no. Because this.
I'm great at parties, by the way.
I was kidding. Great. Alright. Plus you have... What is it, Lannisport? The harbor or whatever?
Mhm.
The trading hub? Isn't it a trading hub? I think.
Yeah, I think so. But isn't Lannisport and Casterly Rock on the western side of Westeros? Because, yeah, they're Wardens of the
Wardens
West.
of the West, yeah.
So, yeah. So they trade with, like, Shy and stuff. Probably.
Maybe that's where their lions come from.
Maybe.
I mean, there's
I don't know.
probably some pretty
Well, they
hot
don't-
commodities coming out of a Shy.
I'm just saying, they probably don't trade with the free cities, so
No.
not getting any of that.
But it wouldn't Yee wouldn't they trade with Yee? Isn't Yee kind of on that? Wouldn't Yee be technically closer to Casterly Rock than it would be, say, to like King's Landing? Because isn't Yee like super east?
I'm pretty sure it's like Essos, and then ET is kind of like down to the right, so it kind of would be.
I'm trying to think if it would be closer to like which.
I can't remember that side of the map too well, but
you
I'm
don't
pretty
see
sure,
it enough, you know. You all you ever see is Westeros. That's like all.
But I'm pretty sure Essos is kind of like the EU area,
Yeah.
and then ET is kind of southeast. It's kind of like where the Middle East would be relative to the
Middle
EU.
East into going into Southern Asia, right?
Yeah.
And then Ashai
And
is
like Asia, you could picture as Ashai. Even though I picture Essos more of the Asian area, you have the vast grasslands like Mongolia and stuff, and then the deserts.
Yeah, that's true. It's kind of more. It's not temperate forest like Europe would be, but it's
Yeah.
kind of situated like. If you're looking at Westeros being like the UK kind of
Yeah.
thing, yeah. And as far as we know, there is no like. Well, I guess Essos could also kind of sound a bit like Africa too, because there's desert and grassland in Africa, so you have kind of the same thing going on.
Mm-hmm. But then there's the land south, because there's another sea in between Essos and Yee, and there's more land down there.
Yep, which we know nothing about, apparently.
Yeah,
We gotta read The World of Ice and Fire.
we do.
Because then
I mean, I know
all these-
that's where the basilisks come from. I know that.
And I just
and
kind of want to read
isn't-
the book, because I want to know stuff.
Well, we haven't met the character yet, but I think we do meet a character that's actually from there.
From where? Oh, those
Yeah.
southern lands? Yeah, I think you're right.
But either way, Eddard's next, right?
Yes, we get to go back to see Eddard next.
So we don't get to go see the southern lands. We do get to go and see Eddard
Back
next
to
time.
King's Landing, our favorite place in Westeros.
So be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and join us for that one.